Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and thank you for joining us on Real Talk with Keith Smith. It's a pleasure to connect with you through the I Love CVille Network. Today's show is going to be dynamite. Woody Fincham is in the studio, and when Woody Fincham is in the studio, content just sparkles. He is an appraiser who does a fantastic job of taking content that is complicated and positioning it in ways for folks to understand and learn from. Not only is it an appraiser, a man who teaches the content, and you see his teaching ability shine on the program. Wherever you're watching the show, let us know. If you have questions, put it in the feed and we'll relay it live on air. We'll salute Judah Wickower before we forget, the man behind the camera that keeps us online and allows us to do what we love, which is talk about our passions and interests. Why don't we go to the studio camera, J-Dubs, who fulfilled his bet this morning.
Smith did not.
With a bottle of Johnny Walker Black, aged 12 years. I have no doubt you will. Neil Williamson said on Wednesday you always fulfill your prop bets.
Yep. I was busy working yesterday, so I didn't make it to the ABC store.
No problem, dude.
So I will try to make it today, and I might actually swing by before your 12:30 show and give it to you. So this way, I've fulfilled my obligation for the next show day.
Sandra Sparrow Hard, welcome to the broadcast. Woody Fincham, my friend, the show is yours. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to both of you guys. Great to be here, and it's already an exciting year. We're already like swamped.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of work?
I've gotten a lot of referral work recently from some of my agent colleagues for a lot. Every bit of it's divorce work, other than some of the regular lender work that we get. But divorces keep happening.
Man, I'm waiting for the NAR data to come out in March, but I think you're going to see family dynamics changing or family composites changing to be a higher percentage this year than last year.
Yeah.
That we're seeing a lot of folks with divorce. I just don't know if that's a result of COVID or whatever. But you've got me rocking and rolling on this Chesapeake thing, Jerry, because now I'm taking a deep dive into it.
Should we? I mean, I think you have the photos from yesterday, right?
Well, it's a corner lot, which makes it even more favorable for development under the new zoning
So
code.
we can really set the stage here and have Woody take a deep dive and Keith take a deep dive here. We have the photos from the listing. We talked about it yesterday. Why don't I set the stage and then get out of your way? It's 1316 Chesapeake Street. For those that are watching and listening, it's a listing in Charlottesville, Virginia, in the city of Charlottesville. That's 10.2 square miles. It's landlocked, and it has very little inventory. For those that don't know this, Charlottesville just greenlit upzoning, which allows more density within the city. And the concept of upzoning is based or rooted on the foundation that additional housing inventory will potentially stabilize price points in a city that's seen affordability become a crisis. I think that's fair to say, a crisis. 1316 Chesapeake Street has an asking price of $499,900. Just for the sake of a talk show, we'll call it $500,000, $500K. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, an 892 square foot home. Judah, if you want to rotate photos in, that'd be great. It was built in 1940. We're talking a home that's 83 years old. In the listing, I'm just talking facts here, it says the home is sold as is. So we know it needs TLC, and I'm looking at it on Zillow.
It's a teardown. I'm looking at it right now on GIS because in the listing they say that you could keep the existing structure into 2 more, but if you've got to take a look at the way the structure fits on the footprint.
It's a teardown.
It's a teardown, so you're only doing 3.
Yeah.
So that's $166,000 per footprint, which is a little steep.
Look, I would say the same.
But it's interesting as I'm looking at the GIS, there is about a 50-foot right-of-way that is to the left as you're looking at it from the top down, which is very interesting because you can use that as like an alleyway and then turn that into 3 sublots under the new zoning ordinance. Now it depends on where the infrastructure is and all that kind of great stuff. But you could conceivably tear that down. I think the asking price is a bit steep, but you can tear that down, put in 3 sublots, and put 3 separate detached units on that?
It's, Woody, I'll get out of your way, 6,098 square foot lot. Now, if you're taking a real estate exam, you know that this question's going to be on the test. How many square feet are in an acre?
Who's taking that?
43,560 square feet
Yes, sir.
in an acre. 43,560. That will be on the real estate exam.
I'm pretty sure it will be.
So
The appraisal exam, too.
6,098 square feet means this is not even, what is that, an eighth of an acre?
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, we're talking a postage stamp.
Yeah.
I want to pick this man's brain.
So, Keith, we've got a paper street extension here, it looks like,
Yeah,
along that right of way. So that's not something you would be able to utilize, potentially.
for valuation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at this from a development perspective.
So, from a real estate appraisal perspective, and really from any type of real estate perspective, whether it's development or whatever, we've got to look at the 4 tests of highest and best use. So, the first test in highest and best use is, is it legal to do something with it? And obviously, with the new upzoning ordinance, yes, it's legal to do something additional to this piece of property, or tear it down and make it more dense. The second test is going to be what's physically possible on the lot, and that's going to be where someone like Keith and an engineer is going to get together and they're going to say, okay, we can get 3 units on here, and they'll allow up to 4 units on it total?
No, so I've been looking at this. So it's RA if you keep the existing structure.
Which that's why maybe it stays.
You physically can't. I'm looking at it.
Because you're saying you can't add anything else to
You
it.
physically can't
Yeah.
add anything else to that because of the particular size of the lot. So again, quick analysis, you're going to have to tear that down.
So there's your physical test there. So then we take it back to a vacant lot. It's just going to be dirt ready to be built on then. So then the
Correct.
next 2 steps are feasibility, financial feasibility, and then maximally productive. Maximally productive is likely going to be that you build it out to its highest density, which is 3 units. And they won't, I don't think that the city is going to let you subdivide the lot any smaller. So if you want to get 3 units there, you're either going to have 1 principal unit with 2 ADUs, or you're going to have a condo situation.
So they're allowing that's the reason why this right-of-way is so important. They're allowing sublots, right? Now, look, we've got, anybody who's watching and listening, we need to caveat this one particular fact.
Sure.
The city hasn't actually set up the subdivision portion of that, or the policies and procedure portion of that. And conversations I had with the city actually yesterday was that this is part of the reason why the delay of kicking this in is to February. Currently, staff is working on that to figure out exactly how this works from a site plan perspective and from a process perspective. Because as a developer and a builder, one of the things I'm going to want to do very quickly is subdivide that into
Of course.
sublots or some lots. Otherwise,
You want
because
fee simple lots, yeah.
well, that's how I'm going to get my funding,
Yeah.
right? Because otherwise I'm doing this all in cash, right? So I'm acquiring in cash, I'm developing in cash, and then I'm selling in cash. And there are some folks that obviously can do that, but normal human beings will have to borrow money in order to do that. So they haven't quite figured out if they're going to allow them to subdivide first before submittal and all these different things. But this is what they're working on. And if you've been watching the show, I've been talking about this for a while. You've got this left-hand side that says, okay, you can do this by a zoning ordinance. Then you now have, okay, can I actually do it?
Right.
What is the subdivision? What is the physical kind of thing? I will tell you.
Neil Williamson watching the program. Hello, Neil Williamson. Interestingly, the owner is in Texas of this piece of property, not even local.
So I will tell you, because I've been looking at parcels quite intently throughout the city. This has got a good potential, because corner lots are a lot more lots that are corners and lots that have access to alleyways will be more developable. Let me have another sip of coffee. Developable than not. Anyway, so this is a great example of taking a deep dive into how this actually will work, but we've got a component we don't know yet, which is actually the policies and procedures and the site plan portion of it, which hopefully will get released by the end of this month.
So the other thing we have to look at too here is what that right of way is a big variable here.
From value.
Yeah, well, will you be able to get additional access to that side of that lot with that paper street that's there? Because I've done a couple of assignments in Charlottesville where Charlottesville has said absolutely no, you can't touch that land.
Yeah.
We're not even going to let you put a gravel driveway across it.
So if you take a harder look at that, I think the answer is yes, because there's a 16th Street Northeast extension, so there's an actual road that goes through about 50% of that right away. So I don't know if it's being used as an alleyway or an actual road. Is it owned by the city, not owned by the city, right? All those things would need to be dug into. But under the assumption, just looking at GIS, if it's owned by the city, then you have to work through the city, because now you're going to have to do bonds. You're going to have to build to the city specs. It's going to be a very expensive process to build that, because what they're going to want is they're going to want a connector road between East Market Street and Chesapeake, and whoever's going to develop that gets to pay for that.
Why don't we do this? Judah Wickhauer's got a Google map that he's been putting on screen. Put the Google map on screen, if you could, please, sir, where the location of this listing is. We'll give some props to the listing agent.
Yes.
Keith, you may be able to help me with her last name. Is it Karen Cohey?
Yeah.
Kehoe?
Kehoe. Karen Kehoe, great agent.
Yep.
Really knows her stuff and understands this. I'm not throwing shade or
That's
anything
why
like that.
I want to highlight that.
Yeah.
Yep.
On any of it, I'm just looking at this as a developer and what it would take to go ahead and develop that that parcel. But my suspicion is, and I know enough of working with the city will probably, if you want to utilize that paper street to use Woody's term, or extend the existing road, you're going to have to comply with all their engineering requirements to go ahead and do that, which is going to be super expensive.
John Phelan, giving Woody some props in Louisville, Kentucky.
Hey, John.
Watching the show right now.
But here's the overall point of this.
Sure.
This stuff is starting to hit the market.
Oh, dude, December 18th, this essentially got greenlit. Now it's officially going to get greenlit in February. And already we're seeing the copy and listing saying, this is the first line of the listing from Karen. Just listed investment property with new zoning law. City allows 3 units to be built and leave the current home on premises, which is sold as is.
So let's talk about how this works. Jerry wants to buy this.
There's water going through that paper street.
Oh, lovely. Okay. So there, water as in streams.
Yep.
Yeah, so they have stream buffers and all this kind of great stuff they have to kick in. So how this would happen in this thing, if somebody wanted us to represent them through this process, right?
Yeah.
First of all, I would not do this under what's called a land acquisition contract or land undeveloped land contract, where we end up going through an LOI, letter of intent, going through a study period, invest a bunch of engineering to figure out if this actually will work to move forward. On paper, it makes sense, but once you start digging into it, and we're doing this live, right, all of a sudden we just found out it's got a stream running through it. Now, if I've got to build a road through that, now I'm impacting stream impacts and got to go through DEQ, Army Corps of Engineers, all this fun stuff. That becomes that much more expensive. So now you're going to have to start looking at this from a different perspective. Okay, maybe we do keep the structure. Maybe we build on top of the structure. Maybe, maybe we attach to the structure.
Attach and go up on it.
Exactly right. So, this is great stuff. I mean, this is what we've all expected to happen, but it requires a lot of really smart people at the table. I was in a meeting yesterday with a bunch of architects and engineers and developers having this very discussion about how do we actually now implement this.
Joe, is it Meyer, Woody?
Joe Meir.
Meir, watching the program?
That's my Cajun buddy down in Louisiana.
He says, is this on land value? Is that what's happening here?
Yes, so Joe, what's happened is Charlottesville's passed an ordinance that's allowing more density to be built. Accessory dwelling units can be added in to single-family properties. We've got a real quick overview is that we have a landlocked city. There's no more land really, so we're trying to figure out ways to get some affordable housing or more affordable housing in for Charlottesville, which is something.
Stabilized price points.
Yeah. Just get it to where we can get some workforce people to actually be able to live in the city, and continue to do what they do.
So this is an RA. Which, if you go to affordable housing, you can bump that density to 6.
Okay.
Right? right? So that helps the math a lot.
Well, if it's physically possible to put 6 units on it, then that bumps it right out of residential straight into
Six
commercial.
on a lot this size?
Probably not. And then
That's-
we have to get it. So again, that's back
So
to.
are you sure of the 6? Because Karen Kehoe has 3 units plus the existing structure.
Yes, correct. If you can have the existing, I'm saying, but if you meet the affordability component,
Gotcha.
right? We're gonna build homes on there. They're gonna be, I think it's 60%, but somebody should correct me. But 60% AMI or below. If the land trust went in there and had the capital to buy this and do it, we would end up if we physically could fit it, we would put 6 units on there. But that requires a tremendous amount of subsidy to get that math to work.
Neil Williamson watching the program, and then we'll get to Katie Pearl's question.
Hey, Katie.
KTP, you still watching? You watching? She asked this question yesterday of Woody Fincham, and I want to bring it up with Woody. Oh, she is fantastic.
Awesome.
How it's going to appraise, which we talked about in the pre-production. I also want to show Deep Throat's chart that you took a glimpse at prior to the show. Neil Williamson says those 60% AMI units must remain affordable for 99 years.
So that's why the land trust works.
99 years. He also says Charlottesville has not set up all the rules of the zoning game, but is requiring by right site plans submitted post August 31, 2023 to adhere to the yet to be defined rules, which is something he highlighted on the Free Enterprise Forum as some potential legal exposure for the city.
So I've got a half a dozen attorneys that are in this space asking if that's I asked even if that's legal. I don't know if it is, to be frank.
Well, which is what he highlighted. Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to tag Karen so she knows we're giving her listing some attention and just speaking facts here. How about walk us through how this is appraised?
So with the potential of doing something more elevated than just a single family home there, we, as an appraiser, I've really got, if I'm given this assignment by a lender, I've really got to look at it. And I do 2 types of highest and best use analysis. I'm going to do a highest and best use analysis as if this property is vacant and it's ready to be built on. So that's where we get into talking about, can we put extra units on it? What's physically possible? The financial feasibility side of it, which is the third test, that's where we look at all the options we have that are both legally and physically possible. And then we sit down and figure out, okay, out of all those options we have that are financially feasible, how do we figure out what's going to be the most productive or the maximally productive use of that property? And that's how we try to value it.
So let me ask you a question. So I put a contract, just hypothetically, we put a contract in on this. We do a 120, whatever, 90, 120, 180, whatever it is, study period on it.
Right.
I invest the money, hire ship engineering, right? Hire the surveyors, go through the process and actually creating a preliminary plan for this development of this property on it, get some sort of preliminary blessing from the city, right? We're after February now on that. And I say, okay, Woody, they're asking $500,000 for it. This is what they say I can build. Does that help you assess future development value? Does that help you at all?
So we're doing an as-is value. We can do a potential value down based upon any type of plan that's put together, but it would have to be something that's put together pretty tightly already. It can't be very speculative.
It would need to be approved by the city. The city would need to say, yes, we would approve this, or we have approved
Well,
it.
we can make it hypothetical to whatever situation applies.
Because I think that's the only way that's going to work,
Yeah.
right? The way
Yeah.
this development is going to work, unless you're using cash to get money, because I'm going to need you to look at this and say, okay, under this assumption, it's worth X.
Most of the properties like this in this situation, at least for the short term, are probably going to be cash purchases.
I would agree.
Because this is very speculative still. A bank, banks are risk adverse.
Yeah.
They don't want to put money into something that they know they're going to take back. Particularly something that may be ambiguous at best right now.
And what that does is that limits the pool of buyers.
It does. And, the pricing on this has got to work out in a way that where, the price per unit for the land will work out in the end. So,
well, again, based on the RA, you could put 6 at 60%, but here's the reality of it. In order to hit 60% the sale price, and I know this is the chair of the land trust, I can't exceed 200.
Yeah, I haven't done
probably closer to 175.
I haven't done the math, but I doubt seriously that a highest and best use analysis would come out saying that affordable housing would be the best bet for a maximally productive return or return on investment.
Well, I've got a meeting with the chief financial officer of PHA and Land Trust to look at this very analysis this afternoon.
There's social value to it for sure, but market value is a different thing.
That's exactly right. But to go ahead and acquire, develop, and build just on a quick back of a card thing, this is about a $350 per unit cost,
$350,000
roughly.
So you're talking
acquisition.
Let's just say, for the sake of a talk show, $500,000 for the land, and then you're saying 350 times 4. So you're saying $1.4 million.
No, it's not times 4. I'm tearing the building down to do 3.
So you're saying 350 for 3 total.
So it's $1,050,000.
$350,000 per unit.
That's $1.5 million right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good chunk of change.
Yeah.
And
for 3 residential units.
For 3 residential units. And do you think that's...
Well, that math works the same as for 3 or 6 per unit, right? It's roughly the same.
Sure.
Right? The cost of construction for a townhome and a single deep house is pretty darn close. The point I'm trying to make as far as the land trust is concerned, right? If it's 350 and we're trying to sell them at 150 to get to that 60%,
doesn't work.
It doesn't. Somebody's got to come up with the math difference just to break even.
Right.
So do you see this being a speculator or an investor that's going to choose to rent the properties moving forward, or choose to sell the properties moving forward?
Or somebody's got 1031 exchange that wants to just say, I'll pay you $500,000. I'll just sit on it for a couple of years, right? And wait for the zoning ordinances to kind of get a little bit better, to kind of weed, because what'll happen over time, it'll just kind of like a really good, Neil's second profession, a really good bottle of wine. As it ages, it gets a little bit better. That's what's going to happen with the zoning ordinance. As it ages, it'll get a little bit better. They'll work through some of the kinks, because nobody really knows how this is going to work out. The only way this is ever going to get figured out is somebody's actually got to do it and work together with the city to run through the hiccups that on it.
Do you have the chart that Deep Throat sent you? What are you seeing it? Can you DM that to? Are you on Facebook, Keith?
I am not on Facebook.
Can you get on Facebook on the?
My ADD will not allow me to focus on that, but just email it to me.
But could you get an email?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Could you email that chart to Keith, and email it to Woody? And then,
give me the overall with the chart.
Well, I'm hoping the pro over here, Woody's going to give a review of the chart. If you could email to both gentlemen so they could see it, and then we can put this on screen, and then have the professor Woody Fincham here give us the nitty gritty of this chart, which I try to do, but I'm not of your expertise or skill set here, Woody Fincham. I'm happily able to slide my computer over while we wait, if you'd like to see that as well.
Yeah, whatever works for you guys.
Yeah,
It's fine.
we can do that.
But
here.
what is Deep Throat's position? What's his
What he's done is he's done a comparison between here's years 2010 through 15, 2016 to 22, and then 2023.
Got it.
The orange here is grade D dwellings. So they're the lower grade.
Yeah.
So that's what the subject property that we're talking about would fall into. So in this period of time, this is how much less it was worth with that improvement compared to the other A, B, and C's. But now look at it, it's completely inverted.
It inverted.
Well, that may tie into some of my data that I did. Thank you.
And that's in their inboxes, and
Yep,
you can
thank
put
you.
that on screen as well. So, Woody, professor, break down what this is here.
Let me get it on my screen so I'm actually talking the same nuts and bolts here.
And like any email, it takes a couple seconds to go through.
Yeah, it's a graphic. So, and we're talking coffee at the beginning. I just got to notice that my black rifle just got delivered at home. So.
There you go, buddy.
Fantastic. Is coffee
Well,
delivered?
it's interesting. So while that's waiting to hit our inboxes, maybe we can pivot a little bit and talk about some of the data that we put together. Here we go. It just came in.
I just got it.
The data that I put together, which may tie into this because I'm showing 2000. The city of Charlottesville, 2003 versus 2016, we're 35% under in sales. And I want to get Woody's read on that, but let's take a look at this Deep Throat.
Johnny Ornalis Capasa Chico.
Hey, Johnny.
The owner of Guadalajara. and soon to open Mexicali on West Main
I
Street.
can't wait to go try that place out.
Same JO.
Is this what I'm looking at specifically for the city of Charlottesville?
Yeah.
Specifically for the city of Charlottesville.
Got it.
This is a guy that sweats data as much as us, does data for a living. I will get out of the way of the pros here. I'm hoping the professor takes over here.
So what this is telling us is that the market participants are paying a premium for these properties because they are seeing potential in it. So our speculators, basically, I mean, I've had a couple clients over the past year before the ordinance was being passed, but we all knew something was going to be passed, that went in and bought some properties around downtown and around the downtown skirt. And Fifeville was one of the areas that we were looking at. And so there's definitely people interested in doing the speculative investment part of it. And this last set of bars supports that immensely because
The 23.
yeah, just look at how the market has shifted since over the last 13 years. It went from being very negative to we went from negative 10 up to almost 20% to the positive.
It's interesting how the B and C grade properties, and I would love to know exactly how he determined A, B, C, and D, but based on his analysis, are flat assessment over sales, right? So what we're talking about here is the sales difference between tax assessment and sale market value, right?
Yeah,
Which
this
is
is
always separate, right?
Yeah,
So let's talk about that.
This is how the assessors actually, they metric what they're going to do each year. So the city of Charlottesville, they do what's called a sales ratio study, and so what they're doing is comparing what a property is actually selling for versus what they are assessed at.
But in your world, in your property appraisal world, how important is tax assessment in establishing value? That's
Zero.
Zero.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's important to note about this.
yeah, what we've got to remember about assessment is that it's ad valorem taxation value. So what that means is that you're dealing with a city organization or city office, and they are charged with having to reassess all of their real estate every year. Well, they can't go in and do individual comparisons. They are looking at this from a mass appraisal perspective, meaning that they're lumping all these properties into big groups, and then they statistically adjust things based upon that sales ratio study I was just talking about.
But where this analysis is helpful, right? It's helpful that shows that properties. It goes back to my 6 things, right? That a feature number 3 and number 4, right? That's the number 3, number 4, right? Number 3 and number 4 is features and condition, right? So that's what's establishing this A, B, and C. So location is part of it, but
Sure.
But the properties are in the right location, right price, right features, right condition is, the premium properties.
Right.
And as we work our way down, they
Where you pull the thread on this particular chart is whether or not the municipality, in this case the city of Charlottesville, has actually gotten the grade of the improvement correct. Has the property been recently renovated? Is it really
Well,
a
they've been
grade
told.
D? Well, they don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't go into all of the properties. And if the property's recently sold, they have access to the MLS. They can look at the pictures and things like that. Or if they're going around and door knocking. A lot of assessment offices, though, don't door knock anymore. They might drive through the neighborhood, but, how many residential parcels are in Charlottesville? I forget.
Oh, God. I know there's 50,000 roughly people. I can't remember off the top of my head what it is.
So, I mean, whatever it is, let's just say 20,000. It's probably not that many houses, but, there's no way in the world a staff of 3 or 4 people can do a proper inventory of everything.
Back to that listing and back to implementing this, that's the other problem that the professionals are talking about around tables meetings I've been involved in. Can the staff actually keep up with these particular requests? There was a potential thrown out there. I know Portland did this for a while where they engaged a third party, engineering firm or architectural firm to help the city through this process. But, we can look at, if you don't mind putting on slide number 4, if you don't mind, Judah. This is the median sales price per jurisdiction in the car foot, just to kind of relate it to to Deep Throat's, thank you, Deep Throat's analysis.
Matt Myers, welcome to the show. Bill Dowdy, welcome to the show.
If you look at the city of Charlottesville, from 2016 to 2023, the median price, this is all product types, right? Single family, attached, condos, jumped from $279 to $459. If you look at the average, that would be slide number 5, Judah, that number jumps from $328 to $555, right? So, I get what Deep Throat is saying, and I think it's a very helpful tool to talk about the quality of the product. But prices have been steadily increasing. The volume is ridiculously low. We're at 2011 sales in the city of Charlottesville. Let me say that again. The volume of sales, the number of units that sold in 2023 is comparable to that of 2011. And what was happening in 2011?
We were recovering from a major financial disaster. But I was thinking about this morning on the drive over because I knew we were going to talk about this, or at least I had a good idea that we would. We have to remember momentum, too. The momentum coming out of 2008 and 2009 into 2011, the year you're talking about, was way different than the momentum we have right now. Actually, the lack of momentum right now, because...
In 2011, we were in an upswing of momentum.
We were starting to recover.
He's saying we're on a downswing now.
No, I'm saying that
we're flat.
We're basically volume's just stale.
Stale. That's a better word.
This last 7 days I looked at Judith. I don't have a slide number, but if you can pop that up, I'd appreciate it. I was taking a look at the last 7 days. So I look at a market monitor that I have 7 days going back, all the jurisdictions in the car footprint. We had 35 come on in the last 7 days. Jerry and I have been talking about this for at least 6 to 8 weeks. We're generally it's been around 15, 17, 12. Now, we had holidays in the middle of that, but we're now double that number. But if you take a look at the same week ending last year, we were at 62 units came on the market. So the good news is we're increasing inventory in the last 6 to 8 weeks, but we're still 50% of where we were this time last year.
Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts here. We'll highlight Gary Palmer. Welcome to the program. GP, thank you kindly for watching the show. Logan Wells Claylow, welcome to the program. Logan. Agents from Nest, Real Estate 3, Town, Avenue, and Keller Williams watching the program right now. Let us know your thoughts here. We'll relay them live on air. Bill McChesney says, with this particular location, maybe you get 4 residences. If there are potentially 4 couples in each residence, then you have potentially 8 motor vehicles. Where do these folks park?
Yeah, that's a great point. On an eighth of an
acre or smaller. Where will they park?
So the theory is that you would not need the parking, right? They would walk.
He counters by saying the theory, or they're going to bike, they're going to walk, they're even going to take a bus, which is what folks are saying in this community. He says it's 20 degrees right now.
You know,
who's going to do that?
I'm going to be a little bit of a pot stirrer here.
Okay.
For us to assume that we're going to attract a demographic that are going to walk or bike or otherwise commute in such a manner, I think is very pretentious of us.
Very presumptuous.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretentious too in the sense that we're thinking that the only group of people that are really going to fall into that are usually going to be people that are buying more expensive real estate. We're not talking about your normal workforce kind of people. So right here,
particularly at those numbers.
Yeah, this is not affordable for most people that are working a 9 to 5.
And I totally agree with what you just said.
But
I see your wife's face in my head every time you do that.
It's actually his daughter.
It's my
His
daughter.
Is it?
Daughter. Yeah. My daughter, who has a master's degree in elementary education, is actually trying to increase my education level, which is about kindergarten level.
That's what you get for paying for school.
That's what I get for paying for the school. Thank you. I appreciate that, Woody. But if Neil's still watching, he can pull the data on it because I don't have it at the tip of my fingers. But if you start taking a look at Minneapolis, Portland, all the areas that actually did this, that abolished or removed the parking requirements, it really didn't become a huge issue. Parking didn't become a big issue in that because they.
But Virginia's a different place.
So different.
Yeah.
I don't think they're comparing apples to apples there, especially with and I'm not trying to throw shade here, our public transportation system, I wouldn't say is the most robust or consistent or approachable.
I'm just saying statistically, it wasn't that big of a deal. Now, here's the other problem with parking. Let's just look at the development side of it. It's expensive. Mm-hmm. To build a parking space is super expensive. So the question the philosophical question is, do I spend money to build units for people to live in? And they have to figure out how to commute. Now, I grew up in the city, right? I grew up where, you had to fight for a parking spot, right? And it was a thing. And you, as you were a kid coming home, your dad kicked you out of the car to hold a parking spot, and you had to fight off the gang members so there was a parking spot. So I come from a different world and a different understanding of that. But I was also in New York City, and I could hop on a subway, I could hop on a bus, or walk a couple of blocks and get whatever I wanted. So to your point, mass transit has to catch up with it. I just, I think you're going to see one parking spot per unit, because that's what the market's going to want. And that goes back to, I don't think you're going to fit any more than 3 on this parcel, right? Because you're going to have to give at least a parking spot on site.
You're saying to be able to sell them, you will.
That's exactly right.
And has anyone, and I know the answer to the panel, I know their answer to this question I'm going to ask. Has anyone been in Belmont on a Friday night when all the restaurants are popping and seen what's happened to the side
So
streets?
there's a reason I go at 4:30 to get a parking spot for the bar to open up open up at 5, because I get a parking spot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing the old folk blue plate special anytime I go over there. I'm going early. I'm not going later.
Well, that's the trick. You
At
go
8:30,
early.
9 o'clock, people are blocking driveways
Yeah.
on the side streets of Belmont with their vehicles.
Yep. And it's a real issue, and it has to be worked through. Back to this rezoning rewrite. And I love your read on this. Look, I don't think you're going to see a lot of multifamily projects happen out of this for 2 reasons. One is it's pretty laborious to go through what's required. But secondly, the funding side of multifamily is evaporating.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing it in cash nationwide, right? And there's not a lot of lenders out there to do multifamily lending, because nationwide we're overbuilding on multifamily units, and that's going to impact us here. Not that we don't need it. It's just you're not going to get the funding to go ahead and build.
Well, the decisions made on the lender level is made at a national
That's
level.
exactly
It's never
right.
made at a local level.
That's
I mean,
exactly right.
our market here is ripe for multifamily because we have a demand for it, and I think we'll continue to have a demand for it for a while.
You'll
But-
see this. You'll see Karen Keogh's listing, and you'll see a lot of smart people digging into it
Yeah.
and going, okay, let's see if I can turn this into 4 or 3 or whatever, 2.
The best return on a property like this, in my opinion, I mean, if I had some cash laying around to buy it, I'm not saying that I'd pay what they have it listed for one way or the other, but I mean, I'd probably grab it, hold it, use it as a rental, and if I'm going to put another unit on it, put one more unit on it, so I've got 2 rental incomes, if the return on the rent's going to be worth it over an 8 to 10 year period.
Well, I didn't take a look at the interior of it. We're assuming it's habitable, but
It's basically habitable. I mean, unless there's some unseen issues with it.
oh yeah.
Mitchell Kapoulis.
Mitch he's in Louisiana too. I don't know how to pronounce his last name.
Mass appraisals aren't true market value. I was privy to a review process this past year and saw up close just how the parish county appraisers made their adjustments. Is his comment.
Yeah.
He's leaving in the feed.
Yeah, they do it a little differently down there because they're governed by parish law versus what we're governed by up here, which is our Commonwealth law and Old English law. I'm probably saying that wrong. I'm sure with all the great attorneys we have out there, they're going to let me know I said something wrong there. But the way we do it here in Virginia is going to be different than how they do it down there. But yeah, he's right. I mean, having worked in the assessor's office for 6 years, I can tell you that the way they do things is based off of ratio studies and making percentage adjustments here and there. They don't really get into it the same way a fee appraiser would get into it.
Neil Williamson, apples and oranges. Much of Minneapolis development was transit-oriented development.
Mm-hmm.
For what it's worth, light rail is still not the solution. And he shares a link to the Free Enterprise Forum.
You'll never hear me say this often, but I disagree with Neil immensely here. You can't say apples and oranges with Minneapolis. That is Prince's hometown. It has to be plums because it's purple.
Woody.
Well
Even
done,
Judah
Woody.
laughed at
Well done,
That's
Woody.
the funniest thing Woody has said on the show right
But-
there. That
but
was
there-
hilarious.
But
He
there,
deadpanned it too.
there are smaller jurisdictions to look at out west that did this, 50,000, 25,000 that dropped out. And at some future show, I've got the reports. I just can't recite the numbers off the top of my head. It did not seem to slow down the actual development. But I can see from a market scenario, if I was going to buy that and put 3 units on there and we were going to not do it affordable, we're going to do market rate, I've got to be able to park 1 vehicle on property somehow. And that may limit the number of units from 3 to 2.
Neil Williamson to Woody. Neil, this is hilarious. For Woody, somebody get him a raspberry beret. Neil, you got Judah laughing in the studio over here. Williamson, well played, Neil. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. We will get to your questions here, but we're sticking with Chesapeake for a little while longer. It's clearly got some traction with the audience. Gavin Sherwood, one of Yes Realty Partners' finest, watching the show right now. We love you, Gavin. Anytime you want to come back on, give us a holler. Go ahead, Keith.
So I think, from a short-term solution on it, if I have a buyer who's looking for a 1031 exchange, I just looked through some of the pictures. I know enough about construction and building that I can look at pictures and figure out what needs to be done in there. You can invest a few bucks in it, rent it, to Woody's point, and then wait for the zoning ordinance and the site plan ordinances over time to kind of be fine-tuned, because you're going to see stuff drop in and drop out over the next 12 to 24 months to fine-tune it. It happened in Portland, it happened in Minneapolis, it happened in all these other jurisdictions. Once they adopted these type of zoning rewrites, they ended up getting tweaked, to use the former mayor Lloyd Stook's technical term on it. But if you're not worried about cash flow and you want to buy it and sit on it, that would make sense.
I love it. Let us know your thoughts, guys. I will get to the question for Woody on his thoughts on what to expect in 2024. I see a version of that question on 3 different Facebook pages for you.
That's pretty status quo for most shows, right? I think we're going to keep doing what we've been doing. I mean, 2024. Unless we have a major economic issue at the national, international level, I don't see anything changing much. If rates do drop, demand's going to go up because buying power will increase for the consumer. It's going to make the consumer more competitive, which means prices will go up even faster. I don't see much inventory or more inventory coming onto the market. We've still got a lot of folks like myself. I've got a sub 3% mortgage. I'm not selling that property.
And the house works for you. There's no need to move out of it, right?
Yeah, I mean. The missus, she's still recovering from her medical issues, so getting up and down the steps isn't as easy as it used to be for her. I've been talking to her. Maybe we might want to go to a ranch, but we might look at something. But we're going to keep that property. I mean, there's no way.
Totally.
If I can rent that out, I'll make money hand over fist on it.
Which only impacts the lack of inventory more, right?
Right.
Because people. I mean, I just helped a client. 2 clients closed 2 new construction townhomes last month, and that's the exact conversation, right? They're going to stay in it for a couple of years, wait for their first child to come because they're newly married, and then after that they're going to keep that as a rental and move into something else.
Yeah.
So that will not come onto inventory.
Real quickly, I have to apologize to Mrs. Fincham. She's just messaged me to let me know in caps and exclamation points that she's not moving. So
she's not moving. Boss is talking right there.
It's funny. We should all get together because in my household, Yonna wants to move and I don't. And it looks like it's the opposite in the Fincham household. I want to pick your brain for a second.
Yeah.
Judah, can you put slide 3 on, please? So this is car footprint 2023, single-family detached, single-family attached, condos, new construction, existing. This is everything in all of the jurisdictions broken down into 3-year blocks, 23, 2019, and 2016. Take a look at Louisa. Louisa's like the rock star, and I'd love you to tell me why you think that's the case. Louisa was 596 units sold, and in 2016 it was 324. That's a 45% increase in volume of sales. I didn't expect to see that when I did these numbers. Tell me why that is, you think?
Well, dirt was cheaper for a long time. I mean, it makes it easier for builders and developers to go in and do it. Spring Creek's there's still gangbusters out there. I mean, we've been very busy with new construction projects out in Spring Creek. Some of the spot builders like Liberty and companies like that, they're building all over Louisa. So, I mean, they can go in and grab small pieces of land and put 2, 3, 4 houses on it, and it's a scalable model that works really well for them.
In Louisa.
Yeah, in Louisa, in Fluvanna, the northern part of Fluvanna and Troy, and areas like that as well. But yeah, I mean, Louisa's, they're not adverse to development. Obviously, with what they've got coming in with the data centers, and is there any large scale subdivisions that are shadow inventory yet? I've not heard of any, but
Yes and maybe no yes.
okay.
There are a couple of developments around Zion's Crossroads that haven't quite made it into the system yet.
Okay.
And I've got to be careful because of the political temperature at the moment.
Sure.
They may not, right? Nobody's going to go through all this expense and to get a large project rezoned, particularly around Zion's Crossroads, because the likelihood of it getting passed
Yeah.
is somewhat questionable at the moment. I think everybody's waiting for this water permit that got
Right.
lit to happen, so that there is the water there. So there's a little bit of that going on. But when you're looking at 200, 300, 500 units, that's a big approval process, and they're not so comfortable. Some of the people that are doing that are not exactly 100% comfortable with the political temperature.
How long will it take Louisa to approve a project of that size, do you think?
Yeah, so the Mets didn't do as well this year as I thought. Years. It's a year's process.
Well, yeah, sure. I mean, I know in Fluvanna where we're at, the Colonial
it's a
Place.
zero chance.
Well, it's zero now, but I mean, Colonial Place was 5 years?
6 years.
6, yeah.
Colonial Circle took 6 years. 6 years from its initial start until dirt started getting pushed.
Right.
Mustache Dan Pettit says, I guess most buyers that in 2024 who qualify for up to $350,000 will either have to rent or have to drive 40 miles to work, because that doesn't exist around here. He also highlights, if you do that, you erode the savings with the depreciation on your car, and you spend a lot of money on gas and time getting to and from work. That's certainly something that's happening, Dan. I believe he's in La Jolla right now with much warmer climate. Dan, I woke up to 14-degree weather here this particular morning.
If somebody would Google it, I don't know off the top of my head, but there's a great app that you can actually put in your miles of how much you're driving extra in your mortgage rate and yada, yada, yada. And it tells you how much extra to drive, an extra 20 minutes, an extra 30 minutes.
Right.
You put your vehicle type in it, how old it is, how much you're paying for fuel, so forth and so on. And it spits out that if you travel another 25 miles, it costs you X dollars. And it doesn't calculate your time, by the way.
I mean, if I was looking to buy right now, and I'm just looking at cost, and I'm looking at just the utility of housing, I'm going to Buckingham. I mean, Route 20 is an easy drive.
Yeah, so I don't have Buckingham in the numbers, and I'm going to work on that, kind of focused on the car footprint for the.
Well, Buckingham's pretty hard to do. You got to have 3
Buckingham's
MLSs.
a portion of car,
Yeah.
but it's 3 different
MLSs. Yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to hit it. You're talking about stuff that's closer to Scottsville, right?
Yeah.
Just on the other side of the river, right? That, and you would have to do a physical map search to go ahead and do that. But if you take a look at slide number 4, Jude, if you don't mind, these are the median sales price per jurisdictions and the car footprint. So this is everything. But take a look at that Louisa. Louisa had a jump from 220 in 2016 to 400. This is median now. I'm dropping my high and lows out in Louisa, but at 400 in 2023. But if you take a look like Albemarle County's 505. That's not that much of a difference, right? Right. That's about $95,000 difference. That's not as a bigger spread than I expected to see. Does that make sense to you?
Well, I mean, if you go back and look at 16, you've got 336 for your median for Albemarle and 220. So it's about $100,000 or so apart.
It's consistent.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. We'll highlight these comments on the feed. How about Waynesboro to Woody's Buckingham response?
Waynesboro is still more affordable than the Charlottesville MSA, but it's getting more expensive. But they are definitely more friendly to looking at projects over
The other
there.
side of the hill.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Stanton's not a bad place to be either. We do a lot of work over there, and there's still a lot of land to be had. So the commute's going to be similar either way, but you do have to contend with After Mountain, and sometimes the traffic can be a little.
And the weather.
Yeah, that's true.
The world is apparently ending on Saturday, so in the weather, make sure you get your milk.
Neil Williamson shares the housing and transportation calculator.
There you go. Thank you.
You can find it on the comment section of my page, or it's tied to a website, housingfinance.com. A calculator unveiled that really tracks the overhead associated with buying property far from the epicenter of employment.
And in simple terms, you plug in certain data and it tells you if you drive. And I've used that tool when we say, look, if you do the math, it's going to cost you this much more to travel 45 minutes. But if we spend a little bit more money and we're 20 minutes away, you make up the difference, but your quality of life and your time on the road.
Right.
And I don't think that calculator includes time on the road.
Dan Pettit says he's complimenting us on our attire over here. Keith Smith, thank you, Dan Pettit. We appreciate you very much. This has come into the feed,
He's up early too,
which I think is a good question. Neither, and this is from North Downtown's finest grace, and neither of the panelists think, or neither Keith and Woody think, that inventory is going to uptick if rates drop.
I mean, if you increase buying power within the consumers, as soon as stuff hits the market, it's going to go right back off the market. So, I mean, inventory I don't think we've got a chance of it increasing at any significant pace. We might have things come onto the market that wouldn't have come on otherwise, but, I mean, I think we're back more to a lifestyle move now than we are for, I just want to buy a new house. Because COVID, if you wanted to move, you moved. Rates were really low, buying power was super high, and people were, they just wanted to move in a lot of cases. But, now I think we're back to a more normal market where people are only moving when they got a job change or, they've got a baby coming or something of that nature.
The number one reason for people to move is for family, be closer to family. It's family related, and then it's like lifestyle changes, divorces, kids, marriages, those type of things. Look, it's what I ought to do is I ought to bring that. Remember that wooden scale I had? I got to bring that back in. What's ultimately going to happen is I think it's just going to be the sliding scale, right? As interest rates drop, inventory will tick up, right? Because those buyers are going to say, sellers, I'm ready to buy. The problem is the buyer pool is just going to keep on getting deeper and deeper and deeper. And it's also going to be a specific type of buyer in it, because I still don't think you're going to see the affordability index get any better.
No.
Right? So, and the people that are going to be afforded are going to have the cash, right, to put a 20% down or whatever they need to do to buy down points. And it's another thing we talked about on the show, one of the previous shows. We're looking at all these great interest rates, but that's for perfect credit score. That's like for 760, 740 and up. If you start going lower than that, that's why if you really want to get in the market, you better double check your credit score and see if you can fix that a little bit, if it needs fixing on it. When you start going down to these lower things, they're like a point higher.
Yeah.
So credit score is super important.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it shrinks your ability to purchase big time. And I just, until Albemarle decides they want to open up their development corridor I just don't see us seeing any normalization in pricing at all.
The short answer is, I think it was Lawrence Yun said this, and I may be wrong, that even if we produce 30% more houses right now, the builders just arbitrage, we would still be under inventories tremendously.
Well, I mean, and they can't build anything affordable or more affordable because of the
starter
costs.
houses are not being built.
I mean, just to get a piece of dirt ready to put a house on,
we just talked about this right here, right? We talked about an opportunity on Chesapeake Street that unless the land trust gets in there and buys it and comes up with $200,000 to $300,000 of subsidy per unit, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
And is the land trust still waiting for, what's the land trust still waiting for from the city?
Oh, yeah.
Is it still waiting for some of its bonds back?
I'm negotiating with it right now, so I want to keep my mouth shut.
Okay.
But yes, we're still waiting on our release of our bond from 2019, which was $18,000, which would be very helpful for the land trust at the moment.
This question, where are the folks that work at UVA, not the nurses or doctors, but the people that support the hospital, making $40,000 or less going to live?
That's the exact conversation we just had.
Yeah.
So here's an opportunity to put 6 affordable housing units on there that in theory you can take a bus or you can walk from Chesapeake, literally not at 20 degrees, but you can walk from Chesapeake to the hospital, right? That's within walking distance, a little bit of a walk, but
I'm too fat for that walk.
Come on now, you've slimmed down.
Well, I've heard you've been trying to,
Woody's been doing cardio. First thing I said when he walked in, he looked leaner.
But the
Literally.
only way that's going to work is if the subsidy comes up to make up the difference between that 150 and 175, which is what this $40,000 a year, worker, service worker, needs to be to afford. And unless, I'll take it. The land trust would be more than happy to take any donations that everybody's willing to do. But until there's this huge pot of cash, that's probably not going to happen here.
This question, do the panelists think a spring market is going to happen?
Yeah,
It's already happening.
Yeah, you're going to see an uptick as far as transactions go, I think. I mean, it's common for any year. Even when we were in the financial issues that we were dealing with in 09, 10, and 11, the spring market was still, going into the summer market, was always our stronger market for the year.
Though it's anemic at 35 the last week on new units that hit the market, that's new inventory, right? So it's double what it's been for the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's still 50% under the same week a year ago, right? So we've got a long way to go. I honestly believe somehow or another we need to build our way out of it. I don't think the jurisdictions around the city and Albemarle are going to allow any more developments to come in.
No.
You might see it on the other side of the hill, right? On it. Greene County is going to have probably about 1,800 more because they've got them in the pipeline over the course of the next few years. But it's this struggle that we have right now is going to be this struggle, I think, for another 5 to 10 years.
Woody Fincham, how about some closing thoughts from you? Anything we haven't covered? Anything that's in your crawl that you want to get out there?
I just wanted to throw a quick shout out to the Ask the Appraiser group on Facebook. We've been working with a lot of agents all across the country on that. John, who runs that group, we're now 41,000 people in the group, and
That's impressive.
it's been going really well. We're able to partner up with agents and answer all kinds of questions that they would have of appraisers, all kinds of scenarios and case studies. So that, and we're trucking along like we normally do, and very appreciative to be here in the new year, and that's it.
You're a rock star.
Absolutely.
It means the world to me that you sit here on a regular basis, so thank you very much. And I'll say this publicly, without your support, we wouldn't be sitting here. So thank you very much for doing that, and thank you for all our partners that make Real Talk with Keith Smith possible, because otherwise we'd be sitting here having this coffee and fun and helping other folks. So go out, have yourself a great day. Go get some milk and bread, because apparently I'm getting texts that the world is going to end tomorrow. So
Time will tell. We will wait to see.
Yeah,
Gina Wickauer,
we'll find
Keith
out.
Smith, Woody Fincham. Shows archived at realtalkwithkeithsmith.com. Today's show was absolutely dynamite. Thank you kindly for joining us. I Love CVille show is up at 12:30. We will catch you then. So long, everybody. Well done, my friends.